Okay, so today we're going to talk about lesson 10-3, and this is solving quadratic equations. Okay, so the first thing we have to look at is what is the difference between a quadratic function and a quadratic equation. Okay, so quite simply, the function is when we have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. This is called the quadratic function. Now, when we turn it into an equation, all we are doing is saying that the ax squared plus bx plus c is going to equal 0. Okay? Now this becomes the quadratic equation that we are going to solve. Now, it's important to note that there are 3 different solutions that you can get with this equation. Okay, the first is that we can have 2 solutions to this equation. We can have 1 solution to the equation, or we can have no solutions. Now, when we talk about solutions in the quadratic equation, we are actually talking about the x-axis and where the parabola touches the x-axis. So when we solve for these, that's what we're looking for. What is happening with the x-axis? So, quite simply, if we look at this in a graphing situation, and I'm just going to freehand this, remembering that I always prefer when we use a ruler, but this is just to show you pretty much what's going on. When we have, here I'm going to make my 3 little freehand graphs, okay? When we have 2 solutions, that means we have a parabola that is meeting that x-axis in 2 points. So this is 2 solutions. If we have 1 solution to the quadratic, that means that our parabola has its vertex, I'll have to make that bigger because I made that pretty bad, its vertex is on the x-axis, okay? Boy, when I freehand, I should be making this better. I should be painting a better picture for you, but no, I'm just not. Okay, so this is when we have 1 solution. Now, we can have no solution if we have a parabola that is either completely above the x-axis or completely below the x-axis. Okay, in this case, it never touches. So this is no solution. Okay, so if we look at problems, and let me go ahead and bring my graph paper in at this point. If we look at problems, now what we're going to look at it is in terms of that 0. So we'll be looking at x squared minus 1 equals 0. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and graph this. So we're going to look at our negative b over 2a. Now, you'll notice that I don't have a b, okay? So that means that this would be 0 over 2, which is equal to 0. So that means that in this case, I'm going to have, and let me now pull in my ruler so that we can make a good graph. going back to where we have our we are at a x equals 0, so we are right on the y-axis. Okay, we're going to be down 1. So if we make our chart, we've got x squared minus 1 and our y. So we're still making a chart. We know that when we put the 0 in here, this is 0 squared minus 1. So the y is minus 1. Okay, so we know that that is where our vertex is going to be. So now I'm going to go to 1 and 2. So 1 squared minus 1 is 0, and 2 squared minus 1 is 3. So 0 and 1, so 1 and 0, sorry, and 2 and 3. Okay, and then when I put my symmetrical points here, and let's go with something. I wonder if this color will show up well for you. If not, we'll switch colors again. But there is our parabola. So we can see that by graphing this, we have two solutions. Okay, we have two solutions, and that would be x equals 1 and negative 1. Okay, I don't really particularly, care what your order is. You can also write this as plus or minus 1. A couple of options there. Okay, so that is what we are going to be doing in this section. Now let's look at a problem that doesn't come to us in the form that we are expecting it to come into. So let's say we've got x squared minus 16 equals negative 16. Okay, well, the first thing we're going to have to do is put it in the proper form. Okay, so we're going to have to add 16 to both sides. When we do that, notice that we're going to get x squared is equal to 0. Okay, this is always the form that we're going to want to work in, is having that quadratic equal 0 in our equation. And now I think that you can tell that this x squared, we're going to have just one solution. And if we look at that when we graph it, our parabola is going to sit on origin. Okay, because at if we look at our chart, x squared and y, if x is 0, then y is 0. So our vertex is going to be right there on the on origin. We'll go to 1 and we'll go to 2. 1 squared, 1 and 2 squared is 4. So then we go to 1 and we go to 4. Our symmetrical points. Okay, and I'm not sure that I really liked green so much, so let's look at what purple does for us. Okay, and there's purple, and so this is one solution, and it is x equals 0. Okay, so there's a couple of problems on that. So now we're going to look at using square roots to solve our equations rather than graphing. So actually I could probably go back to my lined paper. Let's see if I can bring my lined paper back in without having the video shut down. So, okay, success. Woohoo! Okay, so using square roots. So we're going to start with something like t squared minus 25 equals 0. Okay. So now in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to add 25 to both sides. okay? Because we can see that this is a square and this is a square. So what we're going to end up with then is t squared equals 25, okay? And now we're going to take the square root of both sides, square root, okay, so we get t equals, now, for these purposes, we've got to look at the square root of 25 and realize that I could have taken a positive 5 and I could have taken negative 5 and I would have still gotten that 25. So t is going to equal to plus or minus 5. Let's look at another one. Oh, and obviously that's two solutions. So this is two solutions for that problem. Now let's look at another problem. Let's look at 3n squared. Ooh, gotta move this. Perfect. 3n squared plus 12 equals 12. Okay. What I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 12 from both sides. That's going to leave me with 3n squared equals 0. So no matter what I do here, first if I divided out the 3, well, I'm still at n squared equals 0. So basically n is equal to 0, which is one solution. Okay? And, okay, so next we'll look at one more type of problem that we can see, and that is 2g squared plus 32 equals 0. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 32 from both sides, which will give me 2g squared equals negative 32. Dividing both sides by 2 gives me g squared is equal to negative 16. And I think that already you're going to see what the problem is. Because when I go to take the square root, can we take the square root of a negative number? Well, sure, in Algebra 2 we can take the square root of a negative number using our imaginary numbers, but for us in our real number system this is impossible. So this is no solution. So in this case that parabola is above or below facing up or facing down our x-axis. So anyway, that is lesson 10-3. I hope that I was able to, once again, paint the picture of what we are doing. Does that even look like a paintbrush? Well, I guess it kind of does. Okay, so until 10-4, enjoy working on this.